too much noise and echo. Okay. And yeah, feel free to ask in the chat or unmute if really stuck. So the Piccadilly Serverless Workshop, Piccadilly, why the name? As you shall see, we're going to build a picture sharing application. So it's a picture a day, Piccadilly. So it sounds like the Piccadilly Square and Circus in London. And we'll be using the serverless products from the Google Cloud Platform to build that. So let me show you what it will look like. So it's a pretty simple application. So there are pictures that are being shared. You see the pictures, thumbnails of the pictures. You see some labels and tags. There are some links as well. So the home page, a collage view where we put four pictures together, and an upload button where you want to upload the pictures. So here are the on the screen, the upload picture and the collage one. I can show you quickly what it actually looks like. I have it here. I'm going to increase the font size. So this is the one I ran the other day. So you can see the pictures. For example, let's say this one from the cathedral. If I quickly click on it, it's going to show up. The tags, collage, that's where we're going to aggregate 4 pictures together. Perhaps the aggregation is a bit big. And here, that's where we'll be able to upload new pictures. All right, so that looks like this. Let's get back to those slides. So that's what we're going to build together. There will be several services. So we'll have an App Engine front end that will, basically what you saw was the App Engine front end, the web app, if you will, that uploads pictures to cloud storage buckets. We have a thumbnail service, which is running with Cloud Run that takes those pictures and create thumbnails. That's the actual small pictures we see on the App Engine front end. We have an image analysis function, which is using Cloud Function, and also the Cloud Vision API to look at the picture and see what's inside the picture. The dominant color, that's the little colored frame around the picture. And it's going to store some metadata, the labels found in the picture. It's going to store that inside the Firestore data store, so the Firestore database, sorry. Oh, I wrote data store, but it's Firestore here, not data store. I didn't see that before. And the collage service, which is running on a regular schedule to create the latest 4 pictures together. And that's about it. And the user, that's going to be you or everyone using your application. So the 4 Code Labs, as I said, it's running on our Code Labs platform. So the Code Labs platform, please go to this link above, g.co/codelabs/serverless workshop. For the, I think that's for the first, yeah, for the first workshop, we won't necessarily need. So there's the first things first. We also have a GitHub repository where you can get all the code, of course. But for example, for the first lab, you can just copy and paste what's in the code lab. But otherwise, feel free to find the link. But it's a little bit later on that we are going to explain where to fetch the sources. So that's the 4 code labs that we are going to go through.
And it's worth mentioning that our goal today is to finish the first 2 labs.
Oh, yeah.
And then go through the other 2 tomorrow. But at the same time, this is the first time we're ever doing these code labs, and it's the first time we're doing a workshop online, because usually we go to conferences and sites to do it. So we'll see how timing works. But I think we'll be able to manage. We'll see.
Yeah, good point. Let's see. So yeah, today the first one will be the first Cloud Function that analyzes the pictures, and then the other one, the second one, that's going to be the Cloud Run service that is going to create thumbnails using PubSub, Cloud Storage, etc. So that's the first 2 ones that we're going to do together. And something we've put in place. It's a new tool that we're using today because it might require some credits potentially to run the workshop, or also if you want to play with the platform later on. we're going to give you some cloud credits in addition to what you might have on the free trial if you've created an account recently. You have already some cloud credits. Yeah, we're going to go through this. There's going to be a link, and you're going to get a new billing account added to your GCP account, cloud platform account. And we'll have to make sure that we use this billing account with the credits to run the workshop. So the first thing you're going to have to do is to follow this link or type this link. So gcpcredits.com/serverless. So you'll have to log in with your account, the account you have created for being able to log into the Google Cloud Platform. And in the end, you should have a billing account with the credit. So I'm going to do it with you. So here, I'm going to go. So and just to show you, I'm going to increase size here. I already have, an account here, and I'm going to use that.
Yeah, I guess it's worth to note here is that you have to decide whether you want to use an existing project or whether you want to create a new project for the workshop. It's really up to you. But what this billing that we're going to show you do is that it's going to create a new billing account called something like free account or something like that. And then you can use, and it will put some credit into that billing account. And then you can associate your project with that billing account, right? And that's how you get the credits. So if you have an existing project, you should be able to just link that to the billing account. But if you want to create a new project in Google Cloud as well, you can do that, and then this will still work. So it's up to you which way you want to go.
Yeah, exactly. So once you click on that link, so gcpcredits.com/serverless, this one here, you should be brought to a screen that looks like this. So this is the correct account. I'm already logged in. So that's the account I'm using for the Google Cloud Console. The event title, that's the serverless workshop. So I'm going to click here to access my credits. It's going to bring me to this page, GCP credit application. So that's me. That's the right account. That's the coupon code that's created. Some terms and conditions. I'm too lazy to read them all aloud. Hope you don't mind. And then you just click accept and continue. So I'm going to do just that. Credit successfully applied. Awesome. So I think I'm going to close that one. So it brings you to, it brings you actually to the billing page directly. So this is the name of the billing account that was created, Google Cloud Platform Trial Billing Account. So you can see I had like my own billing account before, but the one that just got created, that's this one, Google Cloud Platform Trial Billing Account. So that's the one you should select. Also, you can notice that if I zoom in, I think I can zoom in. So you've got $40 of credits to play with the platform. So we won't be using the $40. But if you want to play with the platform afterwards, you can definitely use those $40 dollars of credits. So what I'm gonna do, so I created manage billing accounts. No, I think I need to go back to billing here to see the projects I have. Yeah, so I can see my two billing accounts. So that's how do I do already? I always forget. Oh yeah, no, my projects. There's a my projects tab here, and I just created a new project already. So I think that's workshop test one. I'm going to use that one, change billing. And I'm going to choose the one with the credits, set account. And otherwise, if you haven't yet created an account, so I need to go back to the home page. But when you're here on the top left-hand corner, so when you click here, you can select your project. So if you have an existing one, you can use one, or you can go through the new project creation. And when you do create a new project, be sure to select the billing account that was granted to you. Okay? So I'll just go with the account and project that I created. Workshop test one. That's the one I'm going to use today with you. Back here. And yeah, there's a comment in the chat. What's everybody? Yeah, actually you can. So Edward shared the link to the Colab. That's great. And I guess I could have shared the link again because it's not clickable on my presentation. I can put it in the chat for folks who want to just copy and paste, or click rather than copy and paste. All right. So credits, that's okay. Project billing accounts. So ensure that your project is tied to this Google Cloud Platform trial billing account, that your project is created with it. And, well, I think we'll be good to go. Before we move on, anyone raise their hand or say something in the chat if it's going all right or going wrong, especially. Just tell me so that we can help you get going. Everybody's silent. Either it's going all fine or where am I? What's going on?
I'm kind of lost with the billing. Someone is lost with the billing.
All right. So perhaps I can backtrack a little bit here. Okay. Where here? So in the okay. So we're great for other folks. So Nicolas, for you, did you create? So you can potentially unmute yourself, or we can do it by chat. But when you're in the Google Cloud Platform console, so either, let's say, in the home here where you see this little dashboard. So it depends whether you've already created a, okay, so you got the credits. Do you have a project or not? So you've got a project, so that's great. So when you're in the billing section here, go to linked billing accounts. Yeah, no, that's not the one I wanted to see. So when I'm in, it's always a little bit confusing actually, because it depends on the view that you actually have, or manage billing accounts. Yeah, that's where I see the two billing accounts that I have. And then here I can see, when I go to this billing account, I can see, where do I see the projects? I'm always lost myself.
If you go under account management, I think that should also show you. So under billing, you see there's account management.
Oh yes, this one.
Yeah, if you click there, then this should.
Yes.
Yeah, it should show you a project and billing.
Yeah, that's the one I'm with. And otherwise, you can change billing or disable billing. So it depends where you're coming from. If you're coming from a project already created or not, you would see it here. Yeah. So if you're unsure if it's linked or not, if you go again to billing and account management and select the Google Cloud Trial Billing Account Management, you should be seeing the project here if it's properly linked. Okay, so that's good. Awesome. Everyone else is all right? So sorry, again, if my explanations wasn't very clear, but it's always a bit confusing to navigate those sections of the Google Cloud Console.
Cool.
All
I guess I
right.
can take over from here.
Sure.
So I'm going to talk about a little bit on serverless on Google Cloud. But as I do that, if you're still stuck with the billing, maybe you can post it in the chat, and then Guillaume will be able to, hopefully through chat, can help you and when I talk, and then we'll get back to labs, and then we'll check again with people whether they set up the billing or not. All right, so let me first present. I think you need to stop presenting, Guillaume. Yep, present now. All right, let's see. Can people see my screen? Yes?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So first of all, apologies because I have like laptop screen and my normal screen, and I need to look at the slides this way, so I might be looking away from you once in a while. But this is the setup that I could manage at home. So what I want to talk to you about is basically just give you an overview of the serverless options that we have at Google Cloud so that we know the landscape. And then in the labs, we'll actually get into details of how each of these options work. But before we get into serverless options, like let's first talk about what we mean by serverless anyway, because when you talk to 10 different people about serverless, you will probably get 10 different answers on what serverless is. But I think in a nutshell, there's two different ways of thinking about serverless. You can think of it in terms of operation, like how do you actually run the code in a serverless way? And in this operational model, you are thinking about the infrastructure being managed for you. There's infrastructure, but it's not your problem anymore. You are relying on some kind of base level security. Of course, you need to think about security yourself no matter what you do, but at least the base level security is managed for you, so you don't have to worry about locking the ports or getting into low level details about the security. And then you usually expect that you pay as you use. It's not like a virtual machine where things run all the time and then you have to pay no matter what. At the same time, when you're writing applications, you might be thinking about serverless in terms of a programming model. And in this model, you're probably thinking about services, because serverless is usually service-based. And these services, they're event-driven. So something triggers these services. It can be a storage event, it can be a pops-up message, or it can be a simple HTTP call, but something triggers and wakes up your serverless function or serverless container. And usually these functions and containers, they're stateless, because these serverless functions or containers, they need to scale up and down, and not having state in them helps for that. Whereas you still need some kind of state, but that state is usually externalized. So this is kind of like the landscape when we think about serverless operations or serverless programming models, and that's what we try to provide as well at Google Cloud. Now, when you look at how you run your code on Google, there's a lot of different ways, and one could argue that there's probably too many ways of how you run your code. So if you're coming from an on-prem kind of world, you are in charge of everything, from physical hardware all the way to your application code. And then as you move to the cloud, you're probably transitioning from dedicated machines to virtual machines, where you're still in charge of the whole stack, but at least things are virtualized, so you can do things like taking snapshots of the virtual machine and then moving it around, and creating instance templates and instance groups out of them. So even though you're in charge of the whole stack, things are getting a little bit easier, and you are not constrained by the underlying physical infrastructure. Then you get into things like containers. And then as soon as you talk about containers, there's Kubernetes, which is a scaled way of running containers, where everywhere pretty much, including Google Cloud. And then as you go further and further, you have things like App Engine and Cloud Functions. And in App Engine, you're not even thinking about containers anymore. You're thinking about applications. And then in Cloud Functions, you're not even thinking about applications. You're thinking about small functions that get deployed. So as you can see, like as you go further and further, you care about less and less things, which is good. And that kind of allows you to focus more on your code. And the serverless zone in Google Cloud is kind of like somewhere in between containers and functions. And the reason why I say somewhere is because now we have things like Cloud Run, and this poor Cloud Run is like at the bottom of the slide, trying to find a place to get in. I actually tried to change this picture to put Cloud Run in there, but first of all, the slide is already too big anyway. But at the same time, Cloud Run is something that's kind of like fits in both worlds. So in Cloud Run, you're running containers, but it's actually doing it in a serverless way, and we're going to talk about that more. But basically, functions, applications, and containers are the things that you can run in a serverless way in Google Cloud, and we'll talk about each one of those as we go further along the workshop. Now, to get into details of the products, so if you're thinking about just functions on Google Cloud, as you might know, there's Cloud Functions. So this is kind of like AWS, Lambda, or Azure Functions, where you just deploy a function and let it get managed by Google. Then you have App Engine for applications. So it's just for serverless web applications, and it's going to be the front end of our application. And then finally, you have Cloud Run for pretty much any kind of stateless containers, HTTP-based containers that you can run on Google's managed infrastructure, but also on GKE as well. Now, the first thing that we want to talk about is Cloud Functions, and this is also the first lab that Guillaume is going to show. Cloud Functions is perfect for small microservices that do just one thing really well. They're mostly functions that kind of respond to events, some kind of triggers. And when you set up Cloud Functions, you could define in the UI what triggers your function. And then once you do that, whenever that event happens, your function will be called, and then you can execute your code, which is in a single function. So for simple things like, there's a change in storage, or there's a change in some VM configuration, and you want to respond to that in a quick way in a function, Cloud Functions is great for that. It's supported in Node.js, Python, Go, and Java, and this kind of makes me sad because I'm a C# developer, and C# is not there yet, but it will be coming at some point. I hope. So if you're using one of these languages, then you can use Cloud Functions. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of things that can trigger Cloud Functions. Things like Cloud Scheduler that can schedule events on a regular interval, Firebase events, just plain HTTP calls, or pops up messages, and many other things that can trigger. And then Cloud Functions, they also have integration with a bunch of other Google Cloud services, so you can connect it to pretty much anything in Google Cloud. So it's kind of the thing that sits in the middle and then listens for events and then responds and then calls something else. So you can think of it that way. It's kind of the glue in your infrastructure. I think I covered most of this, but just to recap, good fit for Cloud Functions is that if you want to do something in a serverless way without having to care about the infrastructure, it's good for that. If you want to handle PubSub messages, cloud storage events, it's good for that. You can do small data transformations. So let's say you have some JSON coming in, and then you want to transform it in a quick way and then save it somewhere else. It's good for that. But if you want to do longer transformations, you probably want to look into something like Dataflow to do more complex transformations. And it's good for webhooks. For example, for Dialogflow, which is the backend for Google. You can use it as a backend for Google Home. You can write webhooks to handle certain things, and then Cloud Functions could be one of those webhooks, and actually it works pretty well for that. And the constraint is that, yes, it only supports certain languages. You're only dealing with functions. So if you want to write something more complicated, you probably want to do it on App Engine or Cloud Run. Otherwise, you're going to have many, many functions, and then managing those functions will be kind of difficult. And you need to work in this event-driven world. Most of us are probably used to kind of handling service-based things, but that are not necessarily triggered by events. But in Cloud Functions, everything is pretty much event-driven. So you need to think in that way, and you need to design your architecture in that event-driven way, which is not a bad thing. It's just a different way of thinking about your architecture. All right, and I think this slide is totally redundant because we already talked about all of this. So you choose Cloud Functions because of the reasons that I already explained. All right, so that's a quick recap of the options that we have on Google Cloud, and then hopefully a little bit more detail on Cloud Functions. Now, in the first lab that Guillaume is going to go through, we're going to actually start building our application, and we're going to be using Cloud Storage events, triggering Cloud Functions that does some calls to Vision API and saves some results to Firestore. So I'll let Guillaume take over from here.
Okay, so if you can, yeah, thank you. And then I'm gonna present now. And there were some good questions on the chat. Let me.
Oh, okay. Let's check the chat.
So share. Okay. Sharing. Yeah. So regarding, so need to show the chat up. I'm confused by this UI. Oh, the chat. Yeah, so regarding calculations, running big calculations, yeah. So yeah, there's up to 9 minutes of running time for a function. So it shouldn't be too long, obviously. And you can also decide between, I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4 different instance sizes, and so you usually pick with the memory size, but the CPU is actually proportional to the memory size. So if you want something that calculates more rapidly, you can use that, like a 2 gig instance instead of a 256 megabyte one. And yeah, as Brett says, oh no, yeah, that's the other interesting question, whether you can chain functions together. So it's possible, yeah, to call another function from a function, but it's kind of an anti-pattern, and it's better to use something like PubSub to get the communication going, because otherwise, let's say, if the first function calls the second function, but the second function is not ready to answer for some kind of reason, it won't be, it's a synchronous call, so it won't necessarily be able to, the first function to finish correctly because the second function is not ready. Whereas if you send something to PubSub, then the second function can pick up that message and do something with that message once it's ready to share, to do something and handle it. All right. So this is what we're going to build. Let's go to our CodeLabs platform. So this is this link. If you haven't gone to this page, g.co/codelabs/serverless-workshop. So we have 4 CodeLabs, and we'll start with the function CodeLabs, the first one here. Okay, so let's go. Start. Oh, people joining in. Yeah. Oh, why am I at the end? Yeah, let's start with the beginning rather than the last deployment. So what we're going to build, we are going to have a user with some picture, and the user is going to put the picture directly in the bucket. In this first lab, we don't yet have the web front end. So you'll have the App Engine web front end at the end. But in the beginning, we'll only add pictures manually through the Cloud Console directly. Once a picture appears on the bucket, the function that we're going to create will be notified. It's going to receive an event saying, okay, there's a new file that's been uploaded. We're going to, from that function, we're going to call the Vision API. The Vision API is going to look at the picture and say, okay, here's what I'm seeing in the picture, plus additional metadata, whether it's a picture that is safe to show, dominant colors, etc. We can ask for different kind of features for the what's inside the picture. So the function is going to retrieve this information from the Vision API, and the information we're interested in, we'll be storing that in Firestore. So again, it's not data store, it's Firestore here. Going to use the Firestore API. So let me go to the next step. So all the labs, in case people go through the labs at a later point, so we have various instructions here to explain how to use the Cloud Console, how to use the Cloud Shell. So from the Cloud Console here, so I'm going to my project that I created, workshop test 1. Okay, and this little icon that you can see here on the top, that's the Cloud Shell icon. So I'll be clicking on it, and it's going to launch Cloud Shell down below. And we're going to use that to run some commands. So the G-Cloud SDK, the command line tool, you can run it, all the commands, you can run them here. So you don't necessarily need to do things on your machine. You can do everything within Cloud Shell. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do the various commands in my own terminal. And as you can see, it's already in the right project. Okay, workshop test 1. Also, later on, something that you can do is open the editor here, which allows you to edit files locally. So that's what, well, we won't really change much from the code, so it's all right to not use it throughout the workshop, but it's a pretty handy tool. And the other little trick I'd like to tell you about, that's this little button here you can open in a new window. So if I click there, in a new window, I'm going to have both the Cloud Shell down there. Let me increase the font size. And above, you will have the files, directory structure, etc. It should be showing up in a few seconds. Yeah. So, well, actually, I've already checked out things. So that's the stuff we're going to check out later. Increase there as well. All right. Okay, so we're in the right project. We started Cloud Shell, so we're ready to run commands from the shell. So I have both here. I think I can close this one. Here, the Cloud Console, and here in another tab. That's handy. I've got the shell and the file editor, the mini IDE. Let's move on to the next step. Next. So we're going to need to enable an API. We'll be using the Vision API. So what you can do to enable the Vision API, it's from within the Cloud Console, there's a search bar, and you can type Cloud Vision API. So you need to select the one API, Cloud Vision API. That's the API page. So let me show you. So Cloud Vision API. Yes, that's the one I want to click on. I'm going to click on it. And okay, I've got the API page, and it's telling me there's a big blue button here, enable. I'm going to enable that API right away. So it's going to take a few seconds. Now the API is ready, and we're going to be able to call the API.
Oops, someone is presenting.
Someone's presenting. You're no longer presenting.
Yeah, you want to try again, Guillaume?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although it says, so stop sharing and sharing again. Let me see. Oh, present now. My entire screen. Yes. Let's see.
Yeah, we can see.
Coming back. All right. So only Mete and I are allowed to come. All right. Yeah, so the Vision API, we enabled it here. So that's what we did. We enabled it. There's also, alternatively, if you want to enable it via the Cloud Shell, there are also commands that you can use. So, well, I've already done it, but I can show you from Cloud Shell as well. So you would just copy and paste this instruction. It will probably say, oh no, it doesn't even say that it's already enabled, but otherwise it says operation successful, something, blah, 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 it's been enabled. Show something like this. So either, so as you will see in the next step, sometimes we use the command line or with the gcloud command, or we can also use the UI. It's possible to do both. But the following labs tend to use more the shell rather than using the UI. So everybody enable the API. Everybody's happy and okay with that. I also noticed some folks joined afterwards, so I hope they will manage to create a project and follow along. But if you don't, please don't hesitate to share that in the chat and ask for help. All right. So the Vision API is enabled. Next, we're going to create a cloud storage bucket. That's where we're going to put the pictures. Yes, so there's Sven asking, how do you go into the specific project in Cloud Shell? So when you're in Cloud Shell, once I'm in the project, when I launch Cloud Shell, it's going to put me directly into the right project. But if it's not the case, you can do gcloud config set project. So, well, I don't need to do it because I'm already in there. But if you do this plus the name of your project, it's going to put you back into the right project. Okay.
And if you do gcloud config info, it will tell you which project you're in, because I always get confused. Yeah. So I have to double check. Oh no.
Config. What is it?
I think it was that. No.
Gcloud config, perhaps configuration or list. Or gcloud info. No.
Config list. Yeah. Right.
Oops.
Yeah. You had
config list.
Yeah. So in config list, you see the project, right? See.
Oh, yeah, I was. Yeah, and I think there's also like a gcloud info or something like this. Info. That says, yeah, pretty much the same thing as well. Gcloud info as well. It should be the project that you've created if you've created a project. Okay. So the bucket, let's go to the cloud storage bucket. Well, to the cloud storage page first. So I'll use the hamburger menu, the top left-hand corner. So I've pinned some of my favorite tools here, but otherwise cloud storage is down there somewhere. Cloud storage is here. And then you can pin or unpin if you want to have a quick access in the top here of this navigation bar. Storage, we're going to create a new bucket. So to create a new bucket, let's click on the create bucket down below. Yeah. No, wrong page. So that's the one I'm going to show. What we're going to do is use, let's say, a convention to name the bucket, because, or at least remember the bucket names that you actually create. So what we're doing is we're going to have two buckets actually. So the first one here, and we'll create another one later on. There's one in which we'll store the uploaded pictures. So the convention, the naming convention, as the names have to be unique, globally unique. We can't all have a bucket called uploaded pictures. So I suggest that we call it uploaded pictures dash the name of your project. Okay, so let me, call it uploaded pictures dash workshop, or let me copy and paste rather than doing a typo. Uploaded pictures dash workshop test one, the name of my project convention, prefix, and then dash, and then the name of my project. I'm going to continue. So you can choose the location type, regional, dual region, multi-region. What did we use? Multi-region, actually, or regional? I forget. Multi-region, that's fine. Let's go with multi-region. And since most of us are likely in Europe, let's all use Europe for the location. Because something that can happen if you have, let's say, apps, functions, containers, and storage or data store, file store, etc., which are in different regions, you may have some egress costs potentially going through the regions. And if you want to have a faster response times, etc., if you do everything in the same region, or if things are multi-regional, that's fine as well. But here, I'm going to go multi-region and use multiple European regions. Continue. There are different storage classes that you can use: standard, nearline, codeline, archive. The one with the best response time, that's standard, so we're going to use that. But if you want to use cloud storage for data that you want to archive, or you don't need to retrieve as rapidly as content that is in a standard bucket, you can use those other storage classes, which have also a lower cost, obviously. But here, let's go with standard. Then the thing we're going to do here is choose whether we want a fine-grained access control or a uniform access control. Here, the picture that we are uploading will be displayed directly from the UI. So the pictures need to be public, and actually all the pictures that we're going to upload will be public. So instead of granting public access on each individual picture, I'm going to use the uniform access to all the object directly. And I'm going to say that the whole bucket is public. So that way, all the pictures inside that public bucket, all the pictures will be public. So continue. Overall, how satisfied are you with storage? I don't know yet. Let's see. Next thing, advanced settings, encryption, Google managed key or customer managed key. We don't want to bother with key management, so we'll let Google handle that for us. Google managed key. And an interesting option, but that we won't use here, is retention policy. If you want some of the stuff you upload to disappear after a while, you can get that done automatically instead of keeping resources for nothing. But we don't need to check the box here. So let me check I'm not forgetting anything. We're using the same region. We'll do that with our function, standard, uniform access, Google managed key for the encryption. Okay, and we're going to do create, because afterwards, that's when we edit the storage bucket that we're going to give the public access. So let's create the bucket. It's going to take a few seconds. Okay, it's here. Perhaps a little bit. I hope the font size is big enough. If it's too small, don't hesitate to tell me, by the way. Let's go to permissions. Here it's going to show all the permissions. And what we're going to do is add members to that bucket. And we're going to add a special kind of member, which is all users. So all users, because they're going to go through the web front end. They'll get the picture from the App Engine front end. It's anybody going to your website. So it's really all users will have access, public access, readable access from the internet. So let's select a role, cloud storage, object viewer. So we only want people to view those pictures. We don't want them to mess with the picture. So I'm going to do save. Are you sure you want to make this resource public? So it's a good warning. Yes, I want to allow public access so that everybody can see the pictures that will be uploaded. allow public access. And notice again the warning here, this bucket is public and can be accessed by anyone on the internet. And that's actually what we want to do. But usually it's probably not what you want to do. But here, that's really what we want to do. So there's this warning. There's also another little warning there. It's really accessible publicly, etc. So be careful with that. And here, that's the objects. So all the files we're going to upload. So add all users as a storage viewer. That's what we did. And I think we are good to go to the next one. All right, so is everyone okay? How is it going? Did you all manage to create the storage bucket? Good, yeah, fine, awesome, very nice. So next step, we showed the console way, but you can do everything in 4 command lines instructions. Yeah, actually, this one we're going to do it as well, regardless of whether you did it from the console or from the shell. We're going to do it because we're going to have those environment variables. They're going to be used later on in the workshop. So let me run this one. Export bucket. So if I do echo, I bucket pictures, it should echo what I've just created. So yeah, uploaded pictures, workshop test 1, my project. All right. Here, that's how we create a bucket in the EU region. To enable uniform access, that's what we did, so that it's the same kind of access to each and every element in the bucket, and then adding the all users for public access. So you should really see that here. So I don't have any picture yet, but that's what we're going to try right away. Because the next step, in step 6, we're going to try to upload a file. So I'm going to pick some pictures. So where I am, I went to Egypt for vacations. Let's say, okay, some picture from Egypt. Yeah, this one. I'm going to upload this picture. And again, you can see here that it's a public element. So if I click on that little link there, it's going to show the picture that I uploaded. So this is, I forget which one I selected, but that's one of the awesome temples that they are in Egypt. And as you can see, the picture is there, the name, storage class, when we created the picture, Google Manage Key, so you can see the information that we had to go through when creating the bucket, and the details, some first metadata that we will need for the picture we uploaded. So that's a test to check that you managed to create upload a new file, and you are able to access it from the internet. So you should really have this public to internet information here. Okay. Hopefully everybody managed to upload. Yeah, so if you have some pictures handy, like at least 4, we'll need at least 4 pictures, if not more. So be sure to have some pictures ready. The application that you are building is yours, and nobody knows about this application. So even if it's a personal picture, or share your end application, a final application with your family or friends or something, but where you're going to add, the pictures you're going to add are really only your pictures on your project in your bucket. So even if it's public access, don't worry too much, because you're the sole person having access to, or knowing the magic URL. Okay, so the URLs are of that form, of that shape: storage, Google APIs, the globally unique name of the bucket, and the name of the picture. Okay. And yeah, you can see as well there's a delete, I'm going to close that, edit metadata, move, copy, etc. And there's a, if you select, that's the delete button that we mentioned in the code lab. All right. Now it's time to move on to functions. So we're going to create a function that is notified when there's a new file on cloud storage. So let's go to the Cloud Console. In the hamburger menu, let's go to Cloud Function. So I have it pinned here, but it's down there in the compute section, Cloud Functions. As you can see, it's going to enable, so it's interesting, some of the products or APIs that we have are automatically enabled when you visit the page, the dedicated page. But for example, for functions, it's automatically done. But for the Vision API, you have to do it manually. So I'm going to click the create function to create my first function. I'm going to call it uploaded picture. So it's the function that's going to be called when a picture is uploaded. In terms of memory, so back to the person who asked the question on calculations. So there are 5. Yeah, I thought we studied at 256, but we started at 128 megabytes up to 2 gigabytes. And normally the CPU is proportional. So you don't really know the number of CPU megahertz that you actually have, but it's more or less proportional to that. So if you want something to execute much faster, you can use a bigger instant function. But also the cost is also proportional because it's serverless. It's proportional to, so let's say something takes twice as long, or, well, actually what's interesting is if something takes 1 second on a 1 gigabyte instance, it might take half a second on a 2 gigabyte instance, so it might be the same price ultimately anyway. So for our first function, we can keep 256 megabytes, that's all right. But here, there are 2 types of functions, as Mete explained. So web triggered functions, HTTP functions, or background functions. Here, we're interested in cloud storage triggers, events that are triggered by cloud storage. And it's going to ask you for the event type. So finalize or create, that's when we create a new picture on cloud storage. And the bucket, I'll need to say from which bucket. So I click on Browse, and here I can select the bucket. And the select button is at the bottom. In case you miss it, it's easy to miss because it's really down below. So the bucket for where I'm going to put the uploaded pictures. And later on, we're going to create thumbnails of those pictures, but in another bucket. So I'm going to select that one. Okay. All the code we'll be doing, we'll be writing is actually Node.js, so it's JavaScript. I hope everybody is fine with that. So our functions, our containers on Cloud Run, our apps will all be Node.js. Here we can keep Node.js 8, or you can choose 10 if you want. It doesn't matter all that much. We'll just keep this function as is because we just want to try it. If you see the default snippet, default function is going to retrieve the event, the cloud storage event, and it's going to print something on the console, in the logs. So I'm going to do that. So hello GCS. So I created the function, well, not yet, but I call the function uploaded picture. That's logical name, but the name here of the actual function to execute, that's the name of the JavaScript function that you see here in the JavaScript code. So it has to match the function to execute has to match the one that is exported here. Okay, because we'll change that later on. So I want to highlight that it's hello GCS, but we'll rename this one later on. We'll just go with this function as is, just to test that functions are correctly triggered when a new picture is uploaded on cloud storage. I'm going to Oh no, I need to do something here as well. Oh, that's interesting. So I'm going to select Europe West. I had this problem when I went through the code lab. It wants a service account, but it should select automatically the default App Engine service account. So let me just backtrack a little bit and try again the creation, just to see if it's better. So I forget to change this cloud storage. So I think it's a bug perhaps in the UI in case the service account is not yet provisioned or something. I'm not sure. But in case you see no service account selected, that might be the reason. Here, service account. Oh, still no service account. I'm worried. There should be a service account. Europe West 3. Is anyone having the same problem?
If you look at the service account dropdown,
Yeah.
it should take you to the list of service accounts. Is it? For me, it was just a timing issue too. Was it empty?
It's really empty. But I had the problem already once. So
yeah, I had it as well. But I just refreshed the page and yeah. So I bet if you do it now, I think it's the timing.
Perhaps. Let's do it again. Let me just look at it already before. Yeah. So yeah, probably a timing issue, but for me, it's somehow it's a bug. I don't know where it is, where it's coming from, but it's a bug. Uploaded picture. Bytes, cloud storage. I select the bucket again. Keep the default function, not US Central, but US, West 3 or West 1, doesn't matter. Timeout 60 seconds. So it should select the sole service account that you have by default. That's the App Engine default service account. It should already be created. So I did, trigger, etc. And the rest is just fine. So I can create that function. So it's going to bring you back to the main Cloud Functions page where you can see the list of functions. So it's going to take, and I can go back here actually while it's being deployed. So that's the first version I'm deploying. But otherwise, if there are, we will deploy, make changes to the code. So we will deploy other functions. You will see this version change. So we need to wait a tiny bit for the functions to deploy before trying again to add a new picture in the bucket and check in the logs if the function was triggered by the creation of a new file in the bucket. So let's wait a little bit. So cloud storage, event, finalize create event type. We select the bucket, okay. Inline editor, because we're just gonna edit the code there within the Cloud Functions page. The West 1, that's the region I used in the code lab, and create. And then once it's ready, it's ready. So it's here. So usually it takes, it takes 1 or 2 minutes maximum. At least the first deployment is sometimes a little bit longer. So it's here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open different tabs. I'm going to back to the storage tab, so I can close the service account 1. I go to the storage here, and I'm going to upload a new picture in my bucket. So let me pick, let's see if it's something I can show. Doesn't matter, or something more nicer, what do we have? Just, or even I don't know. What do I have? Perhaps I shouldn't show that. I'm not sure what I have on my, where I was. No, that's on the desktop that I have my vacations. Yeah, or some, oh yeah, these ones from an aquarium. Okay, open. I'm gonna upload this file. So it's some, oops, no, sorry, that's not the, it's the other one. Yes, that's the one on the top. So it's a, I don't know the name of that fish, but it's a kind of a fish. All right. So I added a picture. And so either you can see, I'm going to go to the logs here, logging. So if you scroll down to, where is it? In tools, I think. No, where is it? Somewhere. Or you, so either you can search for logging, okay, or and then pin it so that it's always pinned here, because we'll come back once in a while. So let's have a look at here. You can see the audited resources, cloud functions, buckets, etc. We'll have a look at the logs here for cloud function.
Just to note here, there's also a preview version of Logbeaver that looks a little bit different. So if you switch to that one, you can still get to cloud functions, but it might not look exactly like this one.
Oh yeah, yeah, good point. So yeah, function executed, function execution started here. Then processing file, that's the actual, or is, oh yeah, moved from cloud function. So it's the console log message, and then function execution took 200 milliseconds, and that means that our function was processed. Processed the image. Well, it didn't do much. All right. So let's perhaps check if there are some comments going on. Is everybody all right? Okay, so I'm not the sole one with the service account issue. Interesting. Yeah. So service account, I don't know why that happens. Is everybody okay with the service account and the creation of the function past the service account issue? So we'll have to report that to our teams and see after 2 refreshes it worked. Okay. Thanks, Dave, for filing a bug. All right. Awesome. So yeah, well, actually, the 8th step is indeed doing what I just did. So going to the storage section, uploading a file, and then checking in the, yeah, so that's the new UI. I guess I have the old UI.
Yep. I tested yesterday with the new UI, so that's why I brought it up.
So there may be some mixed UIs from what you see and from what's in the code lab. And then, yeah, the message processing file, my picture. So next, as we're going to call the Cloud Vision API and get some metadata about information that's in the picture, we'll want to store that metadata in Firestore. So we are going to go to the Firestore page. So Firestore is in the storage section here in the hamburger menu. So I'm going to go to cloud storage. To Firestore. So it should show something. Yeah, it's a little bit slow, but it's there. Firestore comes in actually 2 modes. So there's a native mode, the native Firestore mode, or the, I would say, old Cloud Data Store mode, which emulates fully what Cloud Data Store was doing. Here, it's a brand new application, a greenfield application. So we're going to go with the native mode. So I'm going to select the native mode. Location, we're going to select Europe. to stay within the same region. So we're going to, once you selected the region, you're going to create the database. Again, it takes a few seconds, but it's usually pretty fast.
So Guillaume, I guess it might make sense to explain here, like why did we choose Firestore instead of, say, like a regular SQL database, or what was the main reason why I think you made the decision to go with this one, right?
Yeah. So Firestore for me is also, so since the workshop is about everything serverless, it's also about other products or services that are pay-per-use, that scale without having stuff pre-provisioned, etc. And what's nice with Firestore is that it's a serverless kind of database. So that's why I went with Firestore rather than having we could have used Cloud SQL with PostgreSQL or MySQL, but I really wanted to go full steam on serverless, everything as a service, as much as possible.
Yeah, makes sense.
So the Firestore is created. So we went through the selection, Europe 3. We're going to start to create a new collection, and it's going to be a collection of pictures. Okay, so let's do just that. Start collection. I'm going. So it's not a globally unique name, so just go with pictures. That's fine. Pictures, and that's all. So you just save that. It actually creates a first document, but we don't necessarily. I think I'm going to just delete it. We'll create the documents in that collection programmatically from the function directly. So this one, I can delete it. Okay, so my function, and delete that document. But the document that we're going to store in that collection will contain for each document 4 information or bits of information. So there's the name of the picture that we can find in cloud storage, the labels that's here, the labels that you see here, sky, road, infrastructure, line, etc. That's the labels. You can see also the color. The color, that's the dominant color that we see in the picture. So for example, here for this one with the boat, it's a light azure, no joke, azure kind of blue. Or for the cathedral, that's the color of the stone. Okay, and created will sort pictures by creation date. So we'll do that programmatically from the function. So let's go back to functions and now create a proper function rather than instead of the hello world kind of function that we created. So in the console, I go back to Cloud Functions. I'm going to click on the single function that I have right now, uploaded picture, and I'm going to edit that function. So I'm going to click the edit button. And so either you change that here directly, we'll copy and paste from the code lab. But if you want to have some more real estate, you can go there, click on this, this square kind of icon right there. I don't know how to describe it better than this. Dashed square or corner square, I don't know. So here you can see the whole code. So we have 2 files. There's index.js, which contains the JavaScript code, the Node.js JavaScript code, and package.json. That's where we can specify the dependencies that we need, because we're going to need a few dependencies. So if I go to the 10th step of the code lab, I'm going to copy and paste here this list of dependencies. So we have 3 dependencies. There's already the cloud storage mentioned by default, but we're going to add the vision dependency and the Firestore dependency. So those three are node modules that your JavaScript function is going to need. Storage for accessing the pictures or uploading stuff or downloading stuff from cloud storage, Vision API to call the Vision API, and Firestore to store the metadata. So I copy that, and I'm going to update here the package.json file with that information. Next, I'm going to edit the index.js file, and again, I'm going to copy and paste all the code. So here we already mentioned the code. So if you want to get the code directly from GitHub instead, it's possible. And you can click this code link right there, and it's going to bring you to this project. All right. But if I go to the root of this project, so you can see the 4 labs. There's the link to the initial version of the slides, but we'll update the one. I'm not sure we've updated with the latest version. The slide deck that we're showing, and then what we're building. All right, and then the functions are in a function subdirectory. The Cloud Run services will be there in the services directory, and here the front-end App Engine front-end will be there. But here we stay here in this image analysis functions. All right. So let me. I think I'm going to copy from the code lab, and let me go through the code. All right. So before clicking OK, I'll click OK and deploy the function, and I'm going to explain what I'm doing there. Or do I need to? No, I don't need to do anything. No, for the environment variable, we'll have to do that in some other step, if I'm correct. Yeah. Okay. So let's deploy while I explain what it's doing. So let me show you here in this on GitHub. So the first thing, it's requiring the modules, Vision API, Cloud Storage, and Firestore, not Filestore, sorry. We are going to create to create a client for the Vision API, the image annotator client, which will be used to annotate the picture that's uploaded. We change our function a little bit. We're calling it differently, so that's why. Oh yeah, I forgot to change the name of the function to invoke actually. So I'll need to edit it again. Something I forgot here. Oh yeah, it's not deployed, so I'm not seeing the latest version. Anyway, I'll update that because I forgot to change the name in the form, because it's not Hello GCS anymore. It's Vision Analysis. Anyway, so I'll redeploy it. Doesn't matter. I'm going to export that function. I'm going to log the event that's coming in to see what the JSON payload looks like. I'm going to retrieve 2 things: the name of the picture and the bucket. The bucket is here. I'm going to write some log statement. And here is the annotation, the details of the request that we need to make to the Cloud Vision API. So we need to give the location where the Vision API is going to pick up the picture. We're going to use label detection to see what's in the picture. Image properties, that's thanks to this particular feature that we're going to get the dominant color of the within the picture. And safe search, that's to ensure that the picture that we're showing is safe to show, because if there's some, violence, nudity, porn, or anything of that kind, we want those pictures to be filtered. We don't want them to show up. So we're going to call the, going to increase the font size a bit. We're going to call the, to make the actual call. So it's an asynchronous call. So we're taking advantage of the async await features from the Node.js 8 and beyond. we can see the return, the JSON payload returned by the Vision API. So if there's no error in the response, there's an error field. If it's null, if there's no error field, it means it's all right. But if there's an error field, something failed, and I'm saying, okay, throw a new error, and you'll get the error in the logs, I mean, Stackdriver error reporting as well. If there's no error, that's fine. So we're gonna go through the label annotations of the Vision API response, okay? We're also going to do one thing, which is to sort, according to the score, because the Vision API might recognize something in the picture, but it might not necessarily be 100% sure of what's being displayed. So is it really a cat or is it not a cat? And by the way, I don't know if you see it, but there's a cat on my bed behind me. Perhaps nobody noticed because the cat is sleeping right now. So there is a cat in that actual picture. And then I want to get the description, the labels, and we're going to print the labels, and we'll store them in Firestore as well. But in the logs, we'll print the labels. So the other thing is in the image properties, we want to retrieve the dominant colors. So again, it gives a palette of colors, but I'm just interested in the most important one. And then since I want to show that color in CSS in my view later on, I want to transform the red, green, blue components into an hexadecimal value. And there's a little function right there down below that does this, which writes the hexadecimal, pound hash AFBC12 or something. So the main color, and then safe search. That's where we check for is it adult content, spoof, medical, violence, racy, etc. And if it's likely or very likely, we want to filter those pictures out. So we really don't want to store them or show them. So if it is safe, we're going to actually store something in Firestore in the pictures collection. So that's where you see the key of the document will be the file name, and the attributes will be labels, the list of labels, the colors, and the creation date. Okay. And that's about it for the explanation. So I have the deployment failed because there was no more hello GCS function because I forgot to change the name of my function. So in the code, oh yeah, it's I want to see the one failing. Yeah, the failed one in source. Yeah, this one. So the name of my function here is Vision Analysis. Perhaps for consistency's sake, I guess I should name it the same way. Edit. Yeah, so that's interesting because I have to paste again the code. It's painful. Copy and paste again. When the deployment is failing, it's showing the old version, the one that was successful instead of the one that was deployed. So, okay, I copy and paste the code again, and this one I have the right function name. So while it's being deployed, so let me check where we are here. So the 11th step, that's the one where I actually explain things through the code samples. So the payload that is sent by cloud storage, that's this one. So we were only interested in the bucket and the name. Uploaded pictures, that's the one from the, so uploaded pictures dash, I forget the name of my project. What is it? Workshop test one. That should be what's in my logs. And the name of the picture. And here, that's what the Vision API returns. And we were interested in the label annotations and the safe search. All right. So we're deploying the function, and there's a note saying, please be sure to update the name of the function, something I failed to do, right? All right, and that's the moment where we're going to test our function. So hopefully it's, oh, error code in file index.js can't be loaded. Did you list all the, or perhaps I forgot to change the package JSON as well. Sorry again, my mistake. So the code is correct, but then that was the package. Oh, actually, is it? Is it? Yeah, there's just class, right? So let me go back a bit. No, it's here. Copy and paste. Add. Okay. Oh, and again, I'm not quite clear why. Like the code was correct in index 2. Yeah, no, we just updated. Well, anyway, it's a weird behavior for me, what the Cloud Console is doing there. So while it's being deployed, hopefully this time it'll actually work. I keep tabs open on the Firestore database and on the bucket. Okay. So I'm going to, I just want to check that it's deploying fine before I do upload a new picture. I don't know what, yeah, picture of a boat. That's quite nice. 441. So let's see. Taking a minute or so. What else can I tell you? Packages. Yeah, something interesting as well is that the you know the what's the name of the directory? The node modules directory. It's handled automatically for you by Cloud Functions, so you don't have to upload these modules yourself. It's really done by the platform. All right, so there was a question. Yeah, so thanks, Philippe. I missed it. And yeah, I didn't edit the function to execute before pushing the deploy button. Yeah. So now it's properly deployed, and I can see the source. It's all right. It's the right function and the right package information and the right vision analysis function name. Okay. So now let me upload the picture of the boat. Which one was it? This one. I'm going to upload this one. Okay. Uploaded. Then I can go in. It was too quick for me. I can go to File Store and see, oh, there's a new document added. So that's the key. And it recognized it's a vehicle kind of boat, and there's the dominant color and the creation date. So it worked. We tested the function, deployed it. Oh yeah, and I forgot to have a look at the logs. So if I go to the logs, there's no logs open, so I'm going to open the logs again. Oops. Hey. Okay. Logging. Oh no, I clicked twice. If you look at the logs, Cloud Function logs, it's going to show at the bottom. So the deployment issue earlier. Load new logs. So I'm going to stream the logs. And yeah. So a new picture. So the event that we received, it's right there. Event received, the new picture, the raw vision output. So I have the JSON here, the labels recognized, the colors. Is it safe to show? Yes, it's true. So I'm going to store the metadata in the database. And that's it. Congratulations. You managed to create the first of the 4-part series of code labs. Is everyone all right? So folks, yay. So I see for, yeah, Dave, great. Thank you, Dave and Brett. Awesome. Multiple exports. Yeah, so would be wise to have multiple exports in your index? Yes, that's a good question. I think it's just one per function, but even if you export several, it's the one that you actually, the function name, JavaScript function name that I forget to mention, it's the one that we're going to pick, actually. So I think that's that answers Carlos' question. All right, so next, that's going to be back to Mete, I think.
Yep.
Right. So I stop sharing, and your turn.
All right, my screen. Thanks, Guillaume.
Thank you, Mete.
All right, as it comes up, we have 30 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some slides again pretty quick. I already talked pretty quick, and this is going to be even faster because we don't have that much time. And then after that, I will go through the code lab.
Sorry.
Hopefully, I will be able to go through it quickly, but if not, we can stop where we are and then continue from tomorrow. And tomorrow it's going to be the same time again, and then it's going to be the same meeting link. We're going to share the meeting link again at the end of this session as well. All right, so Guillaume showed you the cloud functions, which is, there's a question, as I missed the beginning of the presentation, where can I find the recording? Yeah, the recording, we are saving it, and then we will, I guess we'll share it via email to registered people. And we also have a meetup page for Google Cloud DevRel. I will also post the link there. But if you don't find it anywhere, feel free to reach out to me or Guillaume, and then we can also share the link with you. All right, so what Guillaume shared with Cloud Functions, you've seen, it's very easy to write some code and then get that hooked up with some trigger, and then get it deployed all from the UI. I mean, everything Guillaume showed, it can be done from command line as well, and that's what I like to use usually because I get frustrated with UI problems. But the problem with Cloud Functions is that, if you can use the language they provide, or if you can use a framework that it works in, then it's great. But then as soon as you want to do something different, some language or some other kind of use case, then you're kind of stuck and you can use Cloud Functions. And that's why Cloud Run is a good choice at that point. So that's what I want to talk about today, right now, about that. Now, if you cannot use functions, your usual fallback is containers. And the reason for this is that containers, they give you the ability to use any language you want, any library you want, any binary you want, and then there's all this ecosystem around containers, like Kubernetes and other tools that you can use. And then once you containerize your application, that context that you create, you can run it exactly the same way, whether you run it locally or whether you run it in the cloud or in other place. And then it also gives you a lot of options to choose where to deploy the container. I mean, you can deploy the containers on Kubernetes, you can deploy it on Cloud Run or on App Engine Flex, and other places as well. So it gives you a lot of flexibility that you might need when Cloud Functions don't work for you. So usually the choice between containers and serverless was kind of like this. You either went with serverless and it was easy and you could iterate fast and it was great, but as soon as you couldn't use that, you had to fall back to containers. You get the flexibility, but you lose the velocity of serverless, right? That was the choice that you had to make upfront. But thankfully, with technologies like Knative and Cloud Run, you don't need to make that choice anymore. You can use containers, but you can still get the benefits of serverless. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that when I show Cloud Run. So Knative is an open source project where you try to run containers in a serverless way on Kubernetes. So anywhere you run Kubernetes, whether that's on-prem or Google Cloud or some other cloud, you can install Knative and you will have that capability. And Cloud Run, it's the managed version of Knative, but on Google's infrastructure. So when you use Cloud Run, it implements Knative serving API, but it doesn't really run on Kubernetes. It runs on Google's managed infrastructure. And that's what the next code lab is about. There's also a version of Cloud Run called Cloud Run on Anthos, which is a way of running Cloud Run, but on Google Kubernetes engine. So if you want to stay in Kubernetes ecosystem, but you want to also do it on Google Cloud, you can use Cloud Run on Anthos. So that gives you that middle ground where you're still running on Kubernetes, but you're kind of getting the management of Google Kubernetes Engine and also the management of Cloud Run on top of that. But our focus today is Cloud Run. If you want to learn more about Knative, I have many talks already online, and also I have tutorials, so feel free to ping me on that. But we'll just focus on the managed version today. Yeah, I already mentioned this. So Cloud Run basically brings serverless to containers, and the whole experience of Cloud Run is it's designed to be serverless, natively serverless, and you get from container to production within seconds. And that's one of the features of Cloud Run that I really like. You basically just say, here's my container, run this, and in 3 seconds you get a URL that you can ping, and you see that your container running. And one experience where you want it, meaning if you want to run Cloud Run on-prem, you probably want to go with Knative. If you want to run on Google Cloud, you probably want to use Cloud Run Managed. But if you want to stay on Kubernetes, you probably want to use Cloud Run on Anthos. So you get to choose where you want to run it. Now, the use cases for Cloud Run, usually they're public endpoints, like mobile backends or webhooks and things like that. But you can also deploy Cloud Run internally. So you can have an internal Cloud Run service where it's not exposed externally, and then other internal services like PubSub or Cloud Scheduler or other Cloud Run services, they can call your internal service. So this is great for internal background task kind of services where you don't really need to expose it to the outside world, but you can still call it internally. Now, in terms of the contract, there are certain rules that you need to adhere to when you run Cloud Run. You need to listen on 000, and then you need to listen on port environment variable, which defaults to 8080. Your server has to start in less than 4 minutes, so you can't just hang around and let the server start like whenever. If you don't do it in 4 minutes, then it gets shut down. It's for request time, so you handle requests in Cloud Run, and that request time has to be 15 minutes. I think we increased this recently to more than 15 minutes, but publicly as of today is 15 minutes. So it's for kind of mid-size request handling request time. So you can't do like very long running requests as of today. And by default, it's 5 minutes, but you can change it all the way up to 15 minutes. And your containers, they have to be stateless, but you can access things outside your container to externalize the state. And you can only handle the request within you can only do computation within the request, meaning, when the request comes in, you cannot spin another thread and do other things. That's not allowed. And the resources that you get by default is that, each container gets 1 CPU, 256 mega RAM, but these are configurable. Up to 2 gig, I think, the memory, and the CPU can be increased to 2 now, and we'll probably make it even more as we go further. One unique thing about Cloud Run is that it can handle concurrent requests. So in Cloud Functions, when a request comes in, it spins a new function. But then in Cloud Run, you can actually handle 80 concurrent requests at once before it spins a new one. So that kind of helps you with things like cold starts, where you don't want a new request waking up your container every single time, because the container might take a little bit of time to start. So with multiple concurrent requests, you have less possibility of cold starts, but it's not impossible. You still have that issue. By default, it scales up to 1,000 max containers, but you can limit it. You have access to metadata server, and your containers are secured by gvisor, which is another open source project to run containers in a sandbox, basically. And you pay for what you use. So, that's what you're used to with functions. Like you pay per invocation, and it's the same kind of model for Cloud Run as well. You pay for the CPU and the memory that you choose and the number of requests that you get, and then you pay for 100 millisecond increments. So for example, if you have 2 requests coming in, you only pay from the beginning of request 1 and then the end of request 2, right? Your container might be running longer than request 1 and request 2, but then you don't pay for that. It might be just staying around for a little longer, but you only pay for the time that's actually spent in the request. So this really makes a difference in terms of the billing. I actually converted an application from App Engine Flex, which is VM-based, running all the time, to Cloud Run, and my bill dropped dramatically because of this rule of requests. So for occasionally connected apps, Cloud Run billing really makes a big difference. Yeah, and I already mentioned this, so you don't have to handle one request per container. You can handle up to 80 requests per container in Cloud Run. And I don't know in App Engine. In App Engine, we also have some concurrency, I guess, right? That's why we have the App Engine logo here. Do you guys know what the limit is there? Is it still 80 or is it something different?
I think it's 80.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense, but I'm not sure of App Engine. But in App Engine as well, I guess you have some kind of concurrency as well. And then other than the typical HTTP endpoint and internal endpoint kind of use cases, Cloud Run also supports some other like asynchronous kind of use cases. For example, you can have PubSub calling Cloud Run. So if someone sends a message to a PubSub topic or queue, then that can trigger a call to Cloud Run, and Cloud Run can handle that request. You can have storage triggered in internal services as well. So storage, you can say something to storage, they can send a notification to a queue, and then from there it can go to PubSub, and then from PubSub it can go to Cloud Run. And we will actually set this up later in the lab. You can have scheduled services. So there's something called Cloud Scheduler, which is kind of like cron, but in the cloud. And then you can set a schedule, like say every minute, and then you can make that call Cloud Run services. And one thing to note is that these Cloud Run services, they can be internal services. So the Cloud Scheduler doesn't need an external endpoint. It can call internal Cloud Run endpoints and do something on a schedule. And then the last thing that I want to mention is the Cloud Tasks. So this is kind of like PubSub, but it has more functionality on top. So when user does some kind of an action, like let's say registration or some purchase, you can create a task and push it in a queue, and then this task can be pushed to a Cloud Run service to handle. And then Cloud Task, it has additional features on top, like for example, it can retry tasks if the task failed, or it can do, I think it can do things like throttling so that you don't send too many tasks at once. So there's a lot of features on Cloud Tasks that are useful by default. So you can hook that up to Cloud Run and get this sophisticated task handling features on top of Cloud Run. So the good fit is that if you have stateless containers and you want to just run them in an easy way, I think Cloud Run is perfect for that. And you get all the features of scaling down to 0, scaling up to 1,000, paying per use, and things like that that you expect from a serverless kind of framework. And because you are running a container, you can pretty much use whatever you want. So whatever you can put in a container, it will be able to run on Cloud Run. And you can also see this as a constraint, because creating a container, even though it's easy for simple kind of applications, so the applications that we're creating today, they're probably easier to create containers for. But as soon as you start creating a bigger application with multiple services, then creating containers, it's still easy, but then making sure that the container is secure and making sure that the container is optimized so that it's as lean as possible, it's not that easy. So that can be a constraint as well. But it's a price that you pay for running in a containerized environment. And you probably need some kind of CI/CD, like a build process, to go from your source code to a container and then to an image in a repository, whether it's on Docker Hub or Google Cloud Container Registry. So you probably need something set up for that because you don't want to manually do that yourself. So this is a really quick recap of Cloud Run. We're going to do one lab today, hopefully, and then the next lab will be tomorrow. But when you come tomorrow, I'll do a quick refresh again of these slides just to make sure that we still remember what Cloud Run is, and then we'll go from there. So in the second lab, what we're going to do is we're going to create a Cloud Run service that will still it will still respond to cloud storage events, but it will do it in a different way, because in Cloud Functions you can respond to cloud storage events directly. You saw in the UI that Guillaume set up, you basically just say, okay, this is my function and this is the storage bucket that I'm interested, and then everything is set up for you automatically. So every time something happens in the storage bucket, you will get notifications without having to set up anything else. Whereas in Cloud Run, things are a little bit more manual. So what you need to do is that you need to create your bucket just like we created before, but then you need to set that bucket to send notifications to PubSub, right? So whenever something happens, that will trigger a PubSub message to a topic that you define, and then you set up PubSub to send that notification to a Cloud Run service, right? So it's more manual. There's PubSub in the middle, and you also need to do more setup from PubSub to Cloud Run yourself, because Cloud Run doesn't abstract that away for you yet. I'm guessing that at some point it will make it easier, but as of today, we have to do it ourselves. So let's go through that. What I'm gonna do, we have 15 minutes, so let's see if we can do as much as we can in 15 minutes. So I am in the Code Lab 2. So this is the second Code Lab, and as I mentioned, the service that we're gonna build is gonna be called Thumbnail Service. And what this will do is that when the user uploads the picture, this will trigger a PubSub message. So the diagram is a little bit misleading because we left out PubSub and we also left out a bucket here. So, but I will explain to you how it's going to look like. So when the user saves the image in the pictures bucket, this will send a message to PubSub. So there's PubSub in the middle, and then PubSub will push that message to the thumbnail service. The thumbnail service will get that message and it will know which picture that's been saved, and then it will make a smaller version of the image. So it will basically shrink the image, and then it will save it to another bucket. So here it shows that it's saving to the pictures bucket, but no, we will actually create a separate bucket and it will save it to that bucket, right? So this is what the Cloud Run service will do. And then tomorrow we're gonna write another Cloud Run service that will do other things, but for today we'll just do this one. So the setup and requirements is the same. So this basically makes sure that you are in Google Cloud Console. So let's go to the main page. You are in Google Cloud Console, and then you have Cloud Shell set up. So I am already in Cloud Shell. Then we need to, as usual, we need to enable APIs. In this case, we need to enable two APIs. One is Cloud Build, because we need to build container images, and Cloud Build really helps for that. Cloud Build, it's a way of building container images in Google Cloud, and also saving those images into Google Container Registry, which is an internal registry for container images. And that's what Cloud Run uses to deploy images from, right? So that's why we are enabling that. And we are also enabling the Cloud Run API itself. So let's do this. So this should be hopefully quick, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time. As this is working, let's look at the next section. Now, as I mentioned, we already have one bucket for the pictures, but we also want another bucket for the thumbnail. So this is the second bucket where we're gonna save the images that we resize. So we're gonna do that. And here, I like to do the things from the command line. So we're gonna do everything from command line. In here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create an environment variable called thumbnails dash, and then I'm adding the Google Cloud project on top of that, because we need to make these storage buckets unique, and this is one way of getting unique storage buckets. So let's do that. And then if we do this, I can see that, I can see that I have my bucket thumbnails set up already. And now we're gonna use gsutil, which is another command line tool to interface with cloud storage. So by doing gsutil mb-l EU, we are creating a bucket in EU zone or region, I guess. So let's do that. So the bucket has been created. And then we need to give uniform bucket level access. I think this makes sure that everyone, what does this do, Guillaume? I think you you set this up in the UI and I just copied and pasted into a command. But this makes sure that people can access this in a uniform way, but I don't know what that means.
Yeah, exactly. So either you put a new file and you say, okay, this file is public, this new file is public, the new file is public, or it's a uniform access. So you say, this bucket is public, so all the files that are uploaded into this bucket are public or non-public.
Okay, I see. So basically, once the bucket is public, everything that's put in it becomes public as well. Okay, that makes sense. So we did that. And then we want to also make sure that the bucket is indeed public. So as you can see, this is, at least for me, much less frustrating than dealing with the UI. So with 3 commands, we set our storage, and let's just go to Google Cloud Storage and make sure that we actually have the bucket. So you can see that I actually was going along with Guillaume's lab, so I already have the pictures bucket, and then the thumbnails is here as well, and it's public, so it seems like it's gonna work, which is great. I guess you guys are checking the chat, right? Do I need to respond to anything? Okay, so I will ignore the chat, but let me know if I need to stop and wait for people. So at this point, I'm assuming that you all have the bucket public and created. Now, next, we're gonna clone the code. So the code is on GitHub. Guillaume mentioned this before. So you can clone it like this. I already cloned it, so I won't do it. And then once you get into the directory, serverless workshop, serverless folder sharing workshop, under there's a services folder, and there's a couple of services, but the one that we are interested in is the thumbnail service, right? So let's actually take a look at that. So I already have this. I'm already in the folder, and I guess I can open the editor here. And let's just quickly go through the code and take a look at the code. Yeah, the editor is taking a little bit of time. Yeah, there we go. Let's see if this does it work. Yeah. All right, so you can see that, so the front end is the App Engine front end that we're going to talk tomorrow. The function is the function that we just deployed. Guillaume just deployed, so it's here if you need it. And then the services are the 2 Cloud Run services that we want to take a look at. So the thumbnails is the one that I'm going to take a look at today, but tomorrow we're going to work on the collage service as well. If you look at under thumbnails, the first thing to realize is that there's a Docker file, because it's going to be a containerized application. This Docker file just installs some things like ImageMagick that we need, and then it copies some of the files, and then it just calls npm start. I'm not a Node.js expert, but I guess this is decent enough Docker file for a simple application. And then package.json is the dependencies. So I think the dependencies are pretty much the same as before. So we are depending on the Google Cloud Storage. Express is the web framework that we are using. Body parser is, I think, it's for JSON parsing. Bluebird is for
promises.
Promises, yeah. Yep. Because I think, is
Image
this the async await thing, right?
Yeah, because the ImageMagick is not very async await friendly, so we wrap it with a promise thanks to the Bluebird dependency.
I see. Okay. And then ImageMagick is the library that we use to actually process the images. And just to go through the code quickly, we are handling the post request. So when a request comes in, this time we are getting a pops up message. So the message, I guess, is a little bit different than the message that we were getting before directly from cloud storage. And in the lab, we'll take a look at an example request, and we can take a look at that there. The message itself is at base 64 encoded. So we decode that, and then from there we extract the bucket that the message was originated from, and then we also need to know where to save the thumbnail. So for that, we're gonna read an environment variable called bucket thumbnails that we will set, and then we basically just go through the picture. So we download the picture from cloud storage, then we use some image magic things to resize the image, so that here we're creating the thumbnail, and we are creating it locally, so we haven't really, we're just saving it locally in the container. Then we will upload it to the thumbnail bucket that was the name of the bucket was passed into us, and that's it. If everything is good, then we will say upload a thumbnail to cloud storage bucket, and if there's an error, we'll do the error. So this is the code itself. It's not, as you can see, it's quite self-contained, and then because it's a Google Cloud Run service, we are reading the port variable, and if it's there, we'll bind to it, but if not, we'll default to 8080. So that's what this is here. All right, so that's what the code is doing, and yeah, and here is an example of what you will get in terms of the pops up message, and then these are the things that we'll extract from it. So I won't go through it here because we only have 5 minutes, but you can take a look at in detail here what kind of things you are getting and what kind of things you need to extract. But it's always a good idea to test this locally and make sure that you have the code correctly. So let's just double check that our code is actually not messed up. So I will go back to my terminal, and let's go to services, then thumbnails. And then here, I'm just running Node.js locally, getting the dependencies, and then I'm not even going to check the code. I'm not going to try to hit this URL. I'll just make sure that it actually starts and the dependencies are okay. And it seems like it's okay, so I'll just kill it here. All right. Now the code seems to work. At least it starts. What we need to do is we need to actually build the container and save it to Google Container Registry. And you can do that with a single command with gcloud. So if you just say gcloud build submit, and then you can tag it, just like you can tag with Docker, you can also tag it with build submit and give it a tag. In this case, it's gcr.io because that's where we're going to save it. And then this is the name of our project. And then thumbnail service is the service that we want to name. So let's do that. So I think, let me see. Let me make this a little bit smaller because it's getting hard. All right, so let's do this. So now this will go through our code. We will find a Docker file. It will use Google Cloud Build to actually build the container. And then once the container is built, it will be saved into Google Container Registry. And then from then on, we can use it in Cloud Run. We can deploy it to Cloud Run. So now it's going through the steps. It's not actually building locally. It's building in the cloud, but it's streaming the logs to us so we can see it from here, but it's not actually doing it locally. And then once this is done, so let's let this run. If we go to Google Cloud Console and Google Container Registry, so this container registry is here. Let's just let this run. You can see that we don't have any images here, but once this is done, we should see the image in here. So we'll let that run. And the next step will be to actually deploy to Cloud Run. And to deploy, again, it's a single command with gcloud, gcloud run deploy. You give your service a name, in this case, thumbnail-service. Then you point to your image. This is the image that we are building right now. The platform is managed, meaning we want to deploy to Cloud Run managed version. But if you're running on Cloud Run on Anthos on GKE, you can change this to that one. It will be deployed to Cloud Run on Anthos. You specify the region. You specify the memory, in this case 1 gig. And we also specify an environment variable. So we want to pass in the bucket name of our thumbnails, so we can pass that as an environment variable to our service, and then it can read that. So that's what I'm doing here. And lastly, we want to make sure that this is a public service. Actually, it doesn't have to be public. I think it can be private as well, because it will be pub/sub calling this function, so we can actually make it internal as well. But in this case, we are making it public. It doesn't hurt, so let's just copy this. So you can see that the image was created, and if I do a refresh, we see the thumbnail service, and we see the image here. So to actually deploy this, we'll paste that command. And the good thing is that Cloud Run is really fast, because I only have, well, the time is up, but hopefully, if you can stay around for like a minute, we should see this up and running. So now this is creating a new revision, and then it's routing traffic to that revision, and then it will also make the service public so that anyone can access to it. Let's see if this is going to work. But then once this ends, if we look under Cloud Run, you can see that the thumbnail service is being deployed. And it's taking a little bit longer. Usually it's like 3 seconds, but then I guess when you need to demo to people, it always takes longer. Yeah, there you go. So the service is deployed. There's a default URL that you can use. And if you look under revisions, you can see that it's deployed. We can take a look at the logs here if you want to, so it's integrated with the logs. So it's all up and running, but I think I won't show you that it works because we are out of time. But tomorrow when we come back, the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to look at this in more detail, and we're going to test it out, make sure that it works, and then we're going to move on to the next Cloud Run service. Okay. So I know this was a little bit quick, but I will continue from here. And actually, I need to also set up the event notification. So we'll continue from step 9 onwards tomorrow. Let me just go back to my presentation quickly. All right, so this is lab 2. We're almost done. And tomorrow we're gonna continue with lab 3. And I guess I thought we had a slide for the link, but basically it's the same link, meeting link that you have today. Please dial in tomorrow at 2 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. Paris time. And any other place, if you're in the US, it's going to be early for you, sorry. But hopefully we'll have another session that's US friendly as well. So thanks for showing up today, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. And Guillaume, you have anything else to say?
Yeah, so thanks a lot. I've been a bit slow in the packaging, sorry for that. But we'll have time tomorrow for everything, don't worry. Thanks, Mete, and thanks, Brett and Dave as well for helping in the chat.
Yes.
And yeah, see you tomorrow.
Yep, see you everyone. Take care.